My sister tried to pretend I didn't exist. At her wedding, until a stranger walked in and said my name. I was standing in the back row of my sister's wedding when the stranger in the third pew turned around and locked eyes with me. He smiled, the kind of smile that makes your stomach drop, and mouthed 3 words I'll never forget. She knows everything. My hands went cold. I hadn't told anyone, not a single soul. But as the officiant asked if anyone objected to the marriage, this man stood up slowly, pulled something from his jacket, and said my name out loud. My sister's face went white. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why that moment destroyed everything, you need to know what I did 3 months before, and why my sister had been pretending I didn't exist ever since. I didn't know it then, but the tension between my sister Emma and me had been building for far longer than 3 months. It started years ago, small cuts that never quite healed. The forgotten birthday invitations. The family photos where I was cropped out before being posted. The way our mother would light up when Emma entered a room, and dim just slightly when I did. I had learned to live with it, to convince myself it didn't matter. But 3 months before her wedding, something happened that made ignoring it impossible. I discovered something about Emma's fiancé, Michael, something that should have stopped the wedding entirely. And when I tried to tell her, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you ever bring this up again, you're not my sister anymore." So I stayed quiet. I swallowed the truth like poison and watched her plan the perfect wedding, knowing it was built on a lie. It happened on a Tuesday night. I was working late at the small accounting firm where I'd been employed for the past 4 years. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. I was about to leave when I saw Michael's car in the parking lot across the street. That wasn't unusual. His office was nearby. But what made me freeze was seeing him get out of the car with a woman who wasn't Emma. They were laughing, standing too close. And then he kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The kind that told a story. My stomach turned. I stood there in the shadows, phone in hand, unsure whether to take a photo, to call Emma, to confront him. I did nothing. I just watched as they got back in the car and drove away. That night I barely slept. By morning, I'd convinced myself I had to tell Emma. She deserved to know. But when I showed up at her apartment with shaking hands and a racing heart, ready to destroy her happiness for her own good, she didn't even let me finish. "Stop," Emma said, holding up her hand before I could get the words out. Her face was already tight with irritation, like she knew I was about to ruin her day. "I know what you're going to say. Someone already told me they saw Michael with another woman. And you know what? I don't care." I blinked, stunned. "You don't care?" She laughed, sharp, bitter. "It's not what you think. That was his cousin, Rebecca. She's helping him plan a surprise for me." God, why does everyone assume the worst? Her tone was dismissive, but something in her voice wavered. I stood there, my heart pounding, trying to find the courage to push back. "Emma, I saw them. It wasn't enough." Her voice dropped to a whisper, but it cut deeper than a scream. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on mine, and for the first time in years, I saw something raw beneath her perfect exterior. Fear. "If you keep spreading rumors about my fiancé, if you try to ruin this for me, you won't just miss the wedding, you'll lose me forever. Do you understand?" The air felt thick. I wanted to fight back, to tell her she was making a terrible mistake. But the way she looked at me, like I was already a stranger, made my throat close. I nodded. She smiled then, cold and victorious, and turned back to her magazines. I left without another word, my hands still shaking. The weeks that followed were suffocating. Emma stopped answering my calls. My mother, ever the peacekeeper who somehow always took Emma's side, called me 3 days later. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice strained with disappointment. "Emma says you tried to sabotage her relationship. She's devastated." I tried to explain, but my mother cut me off. "Sweetheart, I know you've always struggled with Emma's success. It's natural to feel jealous. But accusing Michael of cheating? That's too far." Her words hit me like a slap. Jealous. That's what they thought. that I was the bitter, envious little sister who couldn't stand to see Emma happy. I hung up without defending myself. What was the point? Over the next 2 months, I received exactly one text from Emma. A cold, formal message with the wedding date, time, and dress code. No, I hope you can make it. No, love you. Just information. I almost didn't go. But something inside me, some stubborn, foolish hope that maybe she'd come to her senses, that maybe I could still protect her, made me buy a dress and show up anyway. The day of the wedding arrived with cruel, perfect weather. Sunshine, blue skies, everything Emma had dreamed of. I drove to the venue alone, a historic estate with sprawling gardens and white columns that looked like something out of a fairy tale. When I walked in, I immediately felt it. The cold shoulder. Literally. Aunts and uncles I'd known my whole life glanced at me and turned away. Cousins who used to joke with me suddenly found their phones fascinating. My mother greeted me with a tight smile and a whispered warning. Please don't cause a scene today. This is Emma's day. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, and made my way to find a seat. That's when I realized there was no seat for me, not at the family table, not even in the middle rows. An usher, looking uncomfortable, guided me to the very back, behind a marble pillar that blocked most of the view. Sorry, he muttered. Last-minute seating arrangements. I sat down, my face burning with humiliation, and that's when I noticed him for the first time. A man in a dark suit, sitting 2 rows ahead, who turned around and looked directly at me. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held something I couldn't place. Recognition, maybe, or pity. I tried to ignore him, focusing instead on the ceremony that was about to begin. The string quartet started playing, and guests rose to their feet. Emma appeared at the end of the aisle, breathtaking in her lace gown, our father's arm linked with hers. She was radiant, smiling like this was the happiest moment of her life. I felt a stab of something painful, not jealousy, like they all thought, but grief. Grief for the sister I used to have, for the relationship we'd lost somewhere along the way. As she passed my row, she didn't even glance in my direction. It was as if I truly didn't exist. Michael stood at the altar, looking nervous but proud, his hands clasped in front of him. I studied his face, searching for any sign of the man I'd seen that night, the one who'd kissed another woman with such easy familiarity. But he looked like any other groom, hopeful, earnest, in love. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe I had been wrong. The officiant began speaking, his voice warm and practiced, talking about love and commitment and the sacred bond of marriage. I felt myself sinking into the chair, wishing I could disappear entirely. And that's when the stranger turned around again. This time, he didn't just look. He smiled, that unsettling smile that made my skin prickle with unease. Then he mouthed those 3 words slowly, deliberately, making sure I could read his lips. She knows everything. My blood ran cold. Who was he? What did he mean? I glanced around frantically, but no one else seemed to notice him. Everyone's eyes were on Emma and Michael. My hands gripped the edge of my seat as my mind raced. She knows everything. Did he mean Emma? Did she know something I didn't? Or was he talking about someone else entirely? I wanted to stand up, to demand answers, but my body felt frozen. The ceremony continued. The officiant spoke about honoring one another, about trust and faithfulness. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then came the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. If anyone here has any reason why these 2 should not be wed, speak now, or forever. Hold your peace. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I held my breath. And then, the stranger stood up. The room seemed to hold its breath. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a wave. Emma's face went from radiant to pale in an instant, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Michael's expression shifted. Confusion, then something darker. Fear. The stranger reached into his jacket slowly, almost theatrically, and I felt my heart hammering so hard I thought everyone could hear it. What was he going to pull out? A weapon? Evidence? Then he spoke, his voice calm and clear, cutting through the stunned silence. "I apologize for the interruption." He looked directly at me, and I felt like I was the only person in the room. "But I believe someone here deserves to know the truth before this goes any further." He paused, then said my name. My full name. "Sarah Elizabeth Hartwell. Would you please stand up?" Every eye in that venue turned to look at me. My mother's face was frozen in horror. Emma looked like she might faint. And Michael looked like he'd seen a ghost. My legs felt like they might give out. But somehow, I stood. "My name is Daniel Cortez," the stranger said, his gaze still fixed on me before slowly sweeping across the room. "I'm a private investigator." The words landed like a bomb. Gasps erupted. Emma's hands flew to her mouth. My mother looked like she might collapse. Daniel continued, his voice steady and professional. 3 weeks ago, I was hired to conduct a background investigation. What I found, he paused, pulling a manila envelope from his jacket, is something that concerns everyone in this room, but especially you, Sarah. My mind was spinning. A private investigator? Hired by whom? And why was he saying my name like I was the center of this? "Sarah," Daniel said, looking at me with something that almost resembled kindness. "You tried to warn your sister. You saw something that night, didn't you? You saw Michael with another woman." My throat tightened. Emma let out a strangled sound. "But what you didn't know," Daniel continued, turning now to face Michael directly, "is that the woman he was with wasn't his cousin Rebecca." Michael's face drained of all color. "Her name is Jennifer Moss, and she's not just his mistress." Daniel opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph, holding it up for everyone to see. "She's his wife." Chaos erupted. Emma dropped her bouquet, the flowers scattering across the floor. She staggered backward, and our father caught her by the arm. "That's a lie," Michael shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "This is insane. I don't know who this man is, but he's lying." Daniel remained calm, unmoved by the outburst. He pulled out more documents from the envelope. Marriage certificates, photographs, bank statements. Michael James Crawford married Jennifer Moss 4 years ago in Portland, Oregon. They never divorced. Which means, legally, this ceremony today would be bigamy. Emma's knees buckled. She collapsed into a chair, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. My mother rushed to her side, shooting me a look of pure venom, as if somehow this was still my fault. Michael tried to move toward Emma, but my father stepped between them, his face red with fury. "Don't you dare touch her," he growled. I stood frozen in the back, my heart racing, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or horrified. This was worse than anything I'd imagined. Michael wasn't just cheating. He was married. He'd been planning to commit a crime. And Emma had almost become an unwitting accomplice. Daniel walked toward me, weaving through the stunned guests who parted like the Red Sea. When he reached me, he handed me a business card and spoke quietly, so only I could hear. I was hired by Jennifer Moss 3 weeks ago. She'd been tracking Michael for months, trying to figure out where he disappeared to every weekend. When she found out he was planning to marry someone else, she hired me to gather evidence. My hands trembled as I took the card. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she wanted me to find you first," Daniel said. "Jennifer read your messages to Emma. Michael had left his phone unlocked one night. She saw that you tried to warn your sister. She wanted you to know that you weren't crazy. You were right all along." Tears blurred my vision. For 3 months, I'd been painted as the jealous, vindictive sister, the troublemaker, the liar. And now, in front of everyone, the truth had finally come out. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like devastation. Daniel nodded toward Emma, who was still sobbing in our mother's arms. "She's going to need you," he said softly, "even if she doesn't know it yet." Then he turned and walked out of the venue, leaving behind a room full of shattered dreams and broken trust. For a long moment, nobody moved. The silence was deafening, broken only by Emma's quiet sobs and the uncomfortable shuffling of guests who didn't know whether to stay or leave. Then Michael made his fatal mistake. He tried to run. He bolted toward the side exit, but my father and 2 of my uncles blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere," my father said, his voice like steel. Security was called. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I watched from my spot in the back as Michael was escorted out in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence, still claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But the documents didn't lie. The photographs didn't lie. His entire life with Emma had been built on deception. Guests began filtering out, their whispers following them like a toxic cloud. Some looked at Emma with pity. Others looked at me with something new. Not suspicion or disdain, but respect, or maybe guilt. I wanted to go to Emma, to comfort her, but I couldn't move. My mother was still beside her, stroking her hair, whispering things I couldn't hear. And then Emma looked up. Our eyes met across the ruined wedding venue. For a moment, I thought I saw something in her expression. An apology, maybe, or recognition. But then she looked away, and my mother helped her to her feet, guiding her toward a private room in the back. I sat back down, my legs finally giving out beneath me. The venue was nearly empty now, just a few staff members beginning the grim task of cleaning up the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of Emma's life. I stared at the abandoned altar, the flowers, the untouched cake in the corner. It all felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. "Sarah?" I looked up to find my father standing in front of me. His face was drawn, exhausted, older somehow than it had been just hours before. He sat down heavily in the chair beside me, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "I owe you an apology." My throat tightened. "Dad." "No, let me finish." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Your mother and I, we didn't believe you. We thought you were being jealous, petty. We thought you were trying to hurt your sister." He paused, his voice breaking slightly. "We were wrong, and I'm sorry." Tears spilled down my cheeks. I'd waited so long to hear those words, but now that they were here, they felt hollow. The damage was already done. "Where's Emma?" I asked quietly. "She won't see me, will she?" My father hesitated, and that told me everything I needed to know. "She's processing," he said carefully. "Your mother is with her. She's asked not to see anyone right now." The words stung, but I understood. Emma's entire world had just collapsed. Her fairy tale wedding had turned into a public humiliation. The man she loved, the man she'd defended against my warnings, had betrayed her in the most devastating way possible. Of course she didn't want to see me. I was a living reminder of how wrong she'd been. "Give her time," my father said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "She'll come around. She has to." But I wasn't so sure. The history between Emma and me ran deeper than this one moment. This was just the breaking point of years of resentment, favoritism, and unspoken hurt. Part of me wondered if our relationship was beyond repair. "There's something else you should know," my father said, his voice dropping lower. "The police told me that Jennifer, Michael's actual wife, she wants to press charges. Fraud, attempted bigamy, identity theft. Michael used false documents to get the marriage license. He could go to prison." I absorbed this information slowly. Prison. Michael's lies had been so elaborate, so calculated. How long was he planning this? I asked. My father shook his head grimly. According to the investigator, at least 6 months, maybe longer. 6 months. The timeline hit me like a punch to the gut. That meant Michael had been planning to marry Emma while still legally married to Jennifer, all while maintaining 2 separate lives. How had he managed it? How had none of us seen the signs? Did Emma know anything? I asked, suddenly terrified of the answer. Did she have any idea? My father looked at me sharply. Of course not. "Sarah, your sister is a victim here. She had no clue." I nodded quickly, relief washing over me. At least Emma hadn't been complicit. "But there's more," my father continued, his voice heavy. "The investigator found out that Michael had been borrowing money from Emma. Significant amounts. He told her it was for investments, for their future. But really he was sending it to Jennifer. My stomach turned. How much? Nearly $50,000 over the past year. I felt sick. Emma had worked so hard, saved so carefully. She'd been so proud of the nest egg she and Michael were building together. And it had all been a lie. Every penny had gone to fund his double life. Does Emma know? I whispered. Not yet. Your mother and I decided to wait. She's been through enough today. We sat in silence for a few more minutes. Around us, the last of the staff quietly dismantled the decorations, rolled up the white runner, extinguished the candles. It was like watching a dream being erased in real time. Finally, my father stood. I should get back to your sister and mother. But Sarah? He paused, looking down at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. Genuine regret. I'm proud of you. For trying to protect her, even when no one believed you. That took courage. He squeezed my shoulder and walked away, leaving me alone in the empty venue. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe hours. The sky outside had begun to darken when I finally forced myself to stand. I walked slowly through the venue, past the untouched gift table piled high with elegantly wrapped boxes, past the photo booth that would never be used, past the guest book with only a handful of signatures. And then I saw it. On one of the tables near the front, partially hidden beneath a fallen napkin, was Emma's phone. She must have dropped it during the chaos. I picked it up, intending to take it to her, when the screen lit up with a notification. A text message, from a number not saved in her contacts. The message read, "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way, but you deserved to know before it was too late. If you need to talk, I'm here. Jennifer." My breath caught. Jennifer. Michael's actual wife. The woman whose life he'd also been destroying. I stared at the message, my mind racing. Jennifer had hired the investigator. She'd made sure the truth came out at the wedding, in the most public, undeniable way possible. But this message, it wasn't vengeful or cruel. It was almost kind, compassionate even. 2 more messages appeared as I watched. "He told me you didn't know about me. I believe that. I know what it's like to love someone who turns out to be a stranger. I'm sorry we both had to learn it this way. I should have put the phone down. I should have taken it directly to Emma without reading her private messages, but I couldn't stop myself from scrolling up, looking at the previous conversation. There was only one other exchange from 2 days ago. "Jennifer, please call me. We need to talk before Saturday." Emma hadn't responded. Another message from Jennifer, sent yesterday. "I know you don't believe me, but Michael isn't who you think he is. I have proof. Please just give me 5 minutes." Emma still hadn't responded. Jennifer must have realized Emma wasn't going to listen. That's when she'd hired Daniel to expose everything publicly. I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Jennifer had tried to warn Emma privately, just like I had. And just like me, she'd been ignored. But unlike me, she'd had the resources and determination to make sure the truth came out before Emma made a terrible mistake. In a twisted way, Jennifer had saved my sister. I pocketed the phone and made my way toward the private room where Emma was staying. I needed to give it back to her. And maybe, just maybe, I needed to tell her about Jennifer's messages. The hallway was quiet, dimly lit. I could hear muffled voices from behind the door. My mother's soothing tones, Emma's broken sobs. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. What would I even say? "I'm sorry your life fell apart, but at least I was right." That wasn't what Emma needed to hear. Before I could decide, the door opened. My mother stood there, her face tired and drawn. When she saw me, her expression hardened slightly. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "I found Emma's phone," I said quietly, holding it up. I thought she might need it. My mother took it from me without a word, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, I thought she'd just closed the door in my face. But then she sighed, and something in her expression softened. "She's asking for you," my mother said quietly. The words took a moment to register. "What?" "Emma, she wants to see you." My mother stepped aside, opening the door wider. "But Sarah, please be gentle with her. She's fragile right now." I nodded, my heart pounding as I stepped into the room. Emma was sitting on a small sofa, still in her wedding dress, though the veil had been removed and her hair had fallen from its elegant updo. Her makeup was streaked with tears, her eyes red and swollen. She looked up when I entered, and for a long moment, we just stared at each other. "Hi," I said softly, unsure of what else to say. "Hi," Emma whispered back. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. My mother quietly excused herself, closing the door behind her and leaving us alone. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unspoken hurt and today's catastrophic revelations. Finally, Emma spoke. "You tried to tell me." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, thick with regret. "I did," I said, sitting down carefully in the chair across from her. "But I understand why you didn't believe me. I wouldn't have believed me either." Emma shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "That's not true. You're my sister. I should have listened. I should have trusted you." "Emma," I said gently. He was very convincing. He had an answer for everything. Even I started to doubt what I saw that night. She looked at me with such raw pain in her eyes that it physically hurt to witness. How did I not see it? How did I not know? Her voice cracked. "I was going to marry him, Sarah. I was going to spend the rest of my life with a man who was already married to someone else, who stole from me, who lied about everything." I moved from the chair to sit beside her on the sofa, close but not touching, giving her space. "You loved him. When you love someone, you want to believe the best in them. That's not a weakness, Emma. That's being human. But you saw through him," she said bitterly. "You knew something was wrong. I got lucky. I happened to be in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place, depending on how you look at it." I paused. "Emma, there's something you should know. Jennifer, Michael's wife, she tried to warn you too." Emma's head snapped up. "What?" I pulled out her phone and showed her the messages. Emma read them slowly, her hands trembling. When she finished, she looked up at me with confusion and something else. Shame, maybe. "She texted me 2 days ago. I thought it was some crazy person trying to sabotage my wedding. I blocked the number after the second message." A heavy silence fell between us. Emma stared at the phone in her hands, her expression a mixture of horror and disbelief. "She was trying to help me," Emma whispered. "Just like you were. And I pushed you both away." She looked at me, tears streaming freely now. "Sarah, I've been awful to you. Not just about this, but for years. I excluded you. I made you feel invisible. Mom and Dad always favored me, and instead of standing up for you, I let it happen. I enjoyed it." Her honesty caught me off guard. I'd expected denial, or at least some attempt to minimize the years of pain. But here she was, raw and broken, finally acknowledging what we'd both always known but never said out loud. "Why?" I asked, my own voice breaking. "Why did you treat me that way?" Emma covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. When she finally looked up, her eyes were devastated. "Because I was jealous of you." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "You were always so authentic," Emma said, the words tumbling out. "You didn't care what people thought. You pursued what made you happy, even if it wasn't glamorous or impressive. You were content, and I hated that about you because I was never content. Nothing was ever enough for me." I sat there, stunned. All these years I'd assumed Emma had everything. The looks, the success, our parents' love, the perfect life, and she'd been jealous of me? "I don't understand," I said quietly. Emma wiped her eyes, smearing what was left of her mascara. "I was always performing, Sarah. Always trying to be perfect, to make Mom and Dad proud, to live up to everyone's expectations. And you just existed, happily, without needing anyone's approval." She laughed bitterly. "I resented you for that. And when Michael came along, he was supposed to be the final piece, the perfect husband for the perfect life. So when you tried to tell me he wasn't perfect, that he was a fraud," she trailed off, shaking her head, "I couldn't handle it. Because if Michael was a lie, then maybe everything else was too. Emma. I reached out hesitantly, and this time she didn't pull away. I took her hand, squeezing it gently. Your life wasn't a lie. You worked hard. You accomplished amazing things. None of that changes because of Michael. But I sacrificed our relationship for it, Emma said, squeezing my hand back. I sacrificed you. And for what? For a man who was using me. For a wedding that didn't even happen. Her voice broke completely. I lost everything today, Sarah. My fiancé, my money, my dignity. But the worst part is realizing I almost lost you years ago, and I didn't even care. The tears came then, for both of us. We sat there on that sofa, holding hands, crying for everything we'd lost and everything we'd never had. For the years of distance, the accumulated hurts, the sister bond that had frayed almost to breaking. You didn't lose me, I said through my tears. I'm right here, Emma. I've always been here. Emma pulled me into a hug, and I held her as she sobbed against my shoulder. The wedding dress crinkled between us, a painful reminder of the day's devastation. But neither of us cared. We stayed like that for a long time, two sisters finally breaking down the walls between them. When we finally pulled apart, Emma's face was a mess of tears and ruined makeup, but there was something different in her eyes, something lighter. I don't know how to fix this, she said quietly. Any of it. Michael, the money, my reputation. Everyone saw what happened today. By tomorrow, it'll be all over social media. We'll figure it out, I said firmly. Together, one step at a time. Emma nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand like she used to do when we were kids. Can I ask you something? Anything. That investigator, Daniel. He said Jennifer hired him because she saw your messages to me. That she wanted to find you first. Emma paused. Why would she do that? I thought about it for a moment, remembering Daniel's words, the kindness in Jennifer's messages. I think, I said slowly, she wanted me to know I wasn't alone, that someone believed me. I paused. And maybe she wanted you to know that too, that there were people trying to protect you, even when you couldn't see it. Emma nodded, absorbing this. I want to meet her, she said suddenly. Jennifer. I want to thank her. And apologize. Apologize? She's his actual wife, Sarah. She's been living this nightmare longer than I have. And I was about to become... what? The other woman? Even if I didn't know it. Emma's face crumpled again. God, I feel so stupid. You're not stupid. You were manipulated by someone who was very good at lying. I squeezed her hand. But if you want to meet Jennifer, I think that's brave. And maybe it would help you both. Emma wiped her eyes and reached for her phone. She stared at the blocked number, then unblocked it and began typing. I watched as she wrote, Jennifer, this is Emma. I'm so sorry I didn't listen. Thank you for stopping me from making the biggest mistake of my life. If you're willing, I'd like to meet you. I owe you an apology, and so much more. She showed me the message before sending it. Is this okay? It's perfect, I said. Emma hit send, and we both stared at the screen, waiting. The response came faster than either of us expected. Less than 2 minutes later, Jennifer replied, Emma, I don't need an apology. You were a victim just like me. But yes, I'd like to meet. Maybe we can help each other heal. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Riverside Cafe. I'll have dark hair and be wearing a blue scarf. Emma read it out loud, her voice shaking slightly. She doesn't hate me. Why would she hate you? I asked gently. You didn't know. You were lied to just like her. I know, but... Emma trailed off, then typed back. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thank you, Jennifer. For everything. She set the phone down and looked at me. Will you come with me? To meet her? Are you sure you want me there? Sarah, I need you there. Emma's voice was firm. I've spent too long pushing you away. I don't want to do this alone anymore. Any of it. I felt a warmth spread through my chest, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Of course I'll be there, I said. We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, the weight of the day beginning to settle. Then Emma spoke again, her voice softer. What happens now? I mean, with Michael, with everything. Well, I said carefully. Dad mentioned that Jennifer is pressing charges. Fraud, attempted bigamy. The police will investigate. Emma nodded slowly, her face pale. Good. He deserves it. She paused. What about the money? The $50,000? I hesitated. You know about that? Dad told me while you were gone. He thought I should know everything. Emma's jaw tightened. $50,000, Sarah. That was my savings from 5 years of work, my safety net. And he just took it. We can try to get it back, I said. There are lawyers who specialize in fraud cases. And if Jennifer is pressing charges, that might help your case too. It's not just about the money, Emma said quietly. It's about the betrayal. Every time he told me he loved me, every time he talked about our future together, he was lying. Our entire relationship was built on lies. She looked at me with hollow eyes. How do I trust anyone again after this? I didn't have an easy answer for that. Trust, once shattered, doesn't simply reassemble itself. I think, I said carefully, you start small. You trust the people who've proven themselves. Like Mom and Dad. I paused, unsure if I should say it. Like me? Emma reached out and took my hand again. Especially you. You're the only one who saw through him. The only one who tried to save me, even when I treated you terribly. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Sarah, for everything. I forgive you, I said, and I meant it. The words felt like releasing a weight I'd been carrying for years. But Emma, we need to work on this. Really work on it. This can't just be a moment. We need to rebuild what we lost. I know, Emma said, nodding earnestly. I want that. I want my sister back. She squeezed my hand. Will you stay with me tonight? I don't want to be alone. Of course. We sat together for a while longer, talking about everything and nothing. About childhood memories. About the future. About how we'd move forward from this disaster. Eventually, our mother knocked and came in with tea and sandwiches that neither of us had much appetite for. But we ate anyway. As the evening wore on, Emma changed out of her wedding dress, that beautiful, expensive gown that would never serve its intended purpose. She folded it carefully and placed it in its garment bag, and I saw her hands trembling as she zipped it closed. I don't know what to do with it, she said quietly. Donate it, I suggested. Let someone else have their happy ending. Emma nodded, tears welling up again. That's a good idea. That night, Emma and I shared the bed in her childhood room at our parents' house, just like we used to when we were little and one of us had a nightmare. Except this time, the nightmare was real, and we were both living it. The next morning arrived too quickly. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, and for a brief, blessed moment when I first woke up, I'd forgotten everything that had happened. Then reality crashed back in. Emma was already awake, sitting up in bed and scrolling through her phone. Her face was pale, her expression grim. It's everywhere, she said without looking at me. What is? The wedding. Someone recorded it. The whole thing with Daniel and the reveal about Michael. She turned the phone toward me, and I saw a video playing. Shaky footage of Daniel standing up, of Michael's face going white, of Emma collapsing. The caption read, "Wedding stopped. Groom exposed as married to someone else. Full story in comments." It had over 2 million views. Oh, Emma, I breathed. She scrolled down to the comments. They were a mix of support and cruelty, as internet comments always are. Some called Emma brave for not going through with it. Others called her stupid for not seeing the signs. Many praised Daniel and Jennifer, and several specifically mentioned me, the sister in the back who tried to warn her. At least they believe you now, Emma said bitterly. That's not what matters, I said firmly, taking the phone from her hands. What matters is that you're safe, that you didn't marry him. The internet will move on to the next scandal in a week. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Emma's humiliation wasn't just online, it was everywhere. Her phone kept buzzing with messages from friends, colleagues, distant relatives. Some supportive, many just nosy, wanting the inside story. I need to turn this off, Emma said, powering down her phone. I can't deal with this right now. We went downstairs to find our parents already up, sitting at the kitchen table with grim expressions. The television was on, muted, showing a morning news segment. I caught a glimpse of the headline. Local wedding turns into fraud scandal. They're calling it the wedding expose of the year, our father said darkly. Michael's been arrested. They're charging him with fraud, bigamy attempt, and identity theft. Jennifer's lawyer is building a case for the money he stole from both of you. Emma sank into a chair, her face in her hands. Our mother immediately went to her, wrapping her arms around her shoulders. We'll get through this, Mom said softly. As a family. I felt a pang seeing them together, but this time it was different. This time when our mother looked at me, there was no blame in her eyes, only gratitude. Sarah, she said, thank you for not giving up on your sister, even when we... She trailed off, her own eyes filling with tears. Even when we failed you both. Mom, I started. No, let me say this. She released Emma and came to me, taking my hands. I've been a terrible mother to you, she said, her voice shaking. I favored Emma. I made excuses for her behavior. And when you came to us with the truth about Michael, I dismissed you. I made you feel like you were the problem. Tears streamed down her face. I'm so sorry, Sarah. You deserved better. You deserved a mother who listened, who believed in you, who made you feel valued. And I failed you. I'd imagined this moment countless times over the years. My mother finally acknowledging the inequality, the pain she'd caused. But now that it was happening, I didn't feel the vindication I'd expected. I just felt sad. Sad for all the years we'd lost, for the relationship we could have had. Mom, I said softly, I forgive you, but things need to change. Really change. Not just words. They will, she promised, pulling me into a tight embrace. I swear to you they will. No more favorites, no more dismissing your feelings. You and Emma are both my daughters, and I love you both equally. I should have shown you that all along. Over her shoulder, I saw Emma watching us, tears running down her face. When our mother released me, Emma stood and came over, wrapping her arms around both of us. We stood there in the